Hello and welcome to another session of game development with Unity. I'm switching over to probably working with the 3D side of it a little bit since we already did the last Space Invaders game and really in the 3D environment. I kind of liked working in that. So I'm going to play around with the 3D side. For now, I'm going to be doing kind of one-off videos, and I'll prefix the titles with learning series. And what that means is it's just going to be something where I'm learning to play with either a new tool, a feature, learning how to script something. Um, in most cases, it'll be a single video of me working with that, whatever it is I'm doing. So uh, today's video is on the Unity built-in terrain editor, and you can actually drop this game object directly into your scene, and they have a tool that you can use to raise and lower. Let me click on this right here. This terrain tool. This one here is the you can raise and lower terrain by clicking on that, and you hold down. If you click, once you select one of the brushes, if you click, see you can. If I were to start left clicking here, it would actually raise the ground here. Let me get to a spot that I don't want to mess up because I've been kind of working on this for a little bit now. Let's back up here a little bit. Let's just zoom out. Okay, so for example, if I'll click on this terrain tool, and actually you find if you want to add the component though, basically what it is game object, 3D object, terrain, and it just adds it to your scene or your project window. And then when you click on it, then you'll get these options here. Now the first one, if I were to click on this raise and lower, and then you can click the type of brush you want, how you want to raise and lower. You can play around with that stuff, but I just chose the largest circular one, and it was a solid color. And the reason it just turned white is it was using the by default a white texture, and the lighting finally calculated. It was doing some pre-calculations. I had it running in the background. It just took forever. Although it actually seems to be easier to view the way it was before. But anyways, let me just show you how this works. If I left click and hold here, you see how it's building up this terrain just by I'm kind of left clicking. I can hold it. Or really, actually, I can't really hold it. I thought I could just hold it. And so we're just building this structure out here. So that's how easy it is to do that. Then you can hold down the shift key while you do that. Lower it back down so you can kind of play with it and build up certain areas. Now it gets kind of rough and jagged here. And so they have, obviously you can go with a different size brush, change out the brush when you're doing that, but I did the large one. But if you want to clean it up a little bit, there's a paint height. Click to paint height. Hold shift and click to sample target height. So apparently if I were to shift, click here, that samples that height. Now if I let go, let's see what it's doing here. See how it plateaued it off right at that sampling. So I was able to build a little plateau here. Okay, so that's one of the tools they have. We get to a rough part here of my terrain here, like this section over here. Let's see if we can get down to this corner here. I know it looks like a snow terrain, but it really isn't. Let's raise that up, rotate a little bit this way so we can kind of see. And zoom in, bring that down. Okay, so if we were to take this third tool now. It says smooth height. Click to average out the height. So it doesn't do a complete flatten. But if we get close up here, let's rotate a little bit. You see as I'm holding the button down now, and I'm just kind of rubbing it over the areas, they kind of smooth out. You see how it's smoothing out? It's got more of a smooth appearance rather than the rough. The shadows are going away. Let's get to an area where you can really see that, like this area here. For example, I need to smooth this out here. I haven't started it yet. The reason I got this high kind of cliff-like thing here, this is going to be an island map, and so there's going to be water surrounding this entire land body here that I've created, or in the process of creating. All right, so we've got the tool selected again, and I'm just going to left click and hold, and then just kind of move around sort of fast, because I don't want it to take away too much. I'm just trying to smooth it out. You can see you can go over there and just smooth out these very rough edges. Now you're probably wondering, well, where did the rough edges come from to begin with? And I'm going to show you that here in a minute. All right, let's click this, slide over here. Kind of bring that in a little bit. Rotate. So as we zoom in, you'll probably see there's still a lot of roughness to it, but the main thing is I'm wanting to get most of it out, smoothed out, just like that. That's good. Yeah, this terrain is going to have to be somewhat walkable. What I plan on doing is just playing around with, obviously, this terrain tool here, but I'm also going to play around with the third-person controller, which is what I have here. Ethan is the built-in default third-person. It's a prefab that comes with a built-in model of a 3D model of a character they call Ethan, or a game object called Ethan. And so you can see it comes with, wait, here's the third person character. It comes with animations, an animator, which is the controller for the animations, materials. You can either do Ethan with gray, which is what he's in now, or the white, and then models for his glasses, his body, and got some other things here. Ethan, skeleton, body, glasses, and the avatar prefabs that are ready to go. And I don't really know how to use a lot of this yet. I'm going to look into some of this, some textures. Anyways, let me zoom through this. I'm trying to get my scene view a little bigger than the game view. Now we can apply a texture very easily. Now I've downloaded through the asset store. I went to the asset store and just saw what was free out there, and they happen to have a couple of textures. Well, a texture pack. It had 3 or 4 samples. So I'm going to show you how to apply the texture. But let me get back to how did I zoom this out now. Give you a bird's eye view of how this is going to look. It's pretty much how it's going to look. You can see the scale of it as I scroll in. You see Ethan is just this tiny little dot. I mean, that's how massive. It's a pretty good size terrain. It takes him a while to run around there for sure. I still have some areas to mesh out, but what I did, let me jump to this file folder here. Let's go to Pictures, or Docs, Unity Projects, Unity Art. And I've got this image here that I downloaded from Google Images. Let me just open this up with GNU Image. I used GIMP. That's my tool of choice. It'll take just a minute to load, but I did a search on height maps. Height maps is what I was looking for, and essentially a height map is a an image that can be used to help build a the basic terrain for you, your highs and lows and valleys and all that very quickly, and then you just kind of do what I'm doing, which is sculpt it to your preference after that. But rather than start from scratch from a flat plane and do everything from scratch, you can take an image like this. It has to be a grayscale image, 8 or 16-bit, and so I picked one that was an island, and anyways, that's what I'm using. And so the way it works is the dark areas, as it gets darker down to black. Black is the lowest area it'll generate on your map. When it starts to see the grays and the whites, as it gets to white, full white, that's going to be the highest peak in your terrain. So you can really go, if you wanted to, you can go in an ARC program, just kind of do a very basic terrain. But to get some kind of realistic texture, if you really want one, you can sometimes download these, or there's programs out there I saw that will take a Google Map picture and it'll convert it into something like this. Now, once you get this file, this is a JPEG file, and Unity can't use this directly as a height map file. You have to use a file format called raw image data. And so in the videos I watched when I was trying to figure out how to do this, they kept referring to a raw image type, which was in here, but you have to save it with a .raw extension when you save the file. And there's a couple of options you need to play around with to get it right. But this version that I'm using, 2.8 of GIMP, when you do the file export as, and when I look at the file types here, it does have the raw image data right here. It's raw image data. But you see in parentheses it's saying star.data. And so Unity's wanting a .raw file. Now, I started playing around with this, and I tried to actually just save it as with a .raw when I exported here, but it wouldn't let me. I had to save it with a .data file extension. So I went ahead and did that. And after playing around and figuring out what settings I needed to use, I was able to get something that worked, and I was able to import it. But essentially what you'll do is once you find your height map that you want to use, or if you draw one out, very simple one, you can draw it out, you import it, export it, if you're using GIMP here, export it as raw image data. You'll get a star data file. Well, actually it doesn't automatically put that extension because I pulled up a JPEG. You have to make sure you either remove it or just type it on there. Make sure it matches the file type it's exporting as. And let's see, we're going in, Unity Art. Let's just export that here. And when you do this raw image, GIMP gives you some options here. I left it at standard RGB and RGB normal here under index palette type because I really didn't know what options to choose. But after playing around, and I did come across some information on the web, or it was another YouTube video where someone did an example. You have to pick this planar RGB save type, not the standard. And so what it is, it's actually, I believe it's in the standard. It's 8 bits for red, 8 bits for green, 8 bits for blue. Whereas this planar red, RRR is using 8 bits for each. So it's 24 bits there per RGB color. So that's my understanding of that. But anyways, it has to be the planar option. Make sure you select that if you're going to create something in GIMP and export it. You also want to make sure that it's recommended that your dimensions of your image be the same. Most of the samples I saw were 512 by 512 pixels for the image map, for the height map to export. This one here, if you look at image and go to, where's the resize option? Scale image, let's use that. You'll see it's currently 2048 by 2048. It's the same resolution, both width and height. And so I left it at that. And I had to tweak a few things, but here's the thing about using these files from GIMP, this particular raw image file from GIMP. First of all, whatever the image file size is, you want to create one that's 1 pixel greater in both the height and the width. So, for example, what I mean by that is, okay, we got a 2048 by 2048 image here. We're going to go to File, New, and we'll create the new image 2049, 1 pixel higher in both directions. And I've been trying to find out information on that, why that is. I think it's what it boils down to is a little glitch or something that is, you know, it's off by 1 pixel in the way the image is handled, or it needs to have some kind of extra edge. I don't know what, but you have to have it 1 pixel more in both directions than what your actual height map is. So you have if you download a 512 by 512 one, or you create one from scratch, you know, make sure you make the width and height 513, 1 extra each way. In this case, I did 2049. And then you would, you know, in the background color, fill with, my foreground color is black. I want it to match. I really want it all to be black, so I would just do that. Okay, so that would create a 20 by 49, 20 by 49 image. And I would go back to the original, edit, select all, edit, copy, to go to the blank image, which is a pixel larger in each direction, and just paste that in there. That's all you would do. And then once you do that, then you do File, then you do your export as, choose the raw image data, give it a name, make sure it's got the .data file extension, and put it in a folder where you're going to be able to find it. Now once you export it, you can then go to the file system here and just rename it as .raw, which is what I did with the one I had before. I've got one right here. It's got a .raw extension. And so once you have that, let's close this. All right, so let's do this. What I want to do is add, just so y'all can see, I'm going to first of all uncheck the third person controller. Whoops, I can't do that. I forgot I moved my camera to follow the player, so that as he walks around the terrain, the camera is viewing what, you know, from behind him as he walks or runs it. Let's add another terrain here. Let's go to Game Object, 3D Object, Terrain. So now this terrain here, let's uncheck it. That'll hide that one. And let's do we want to view over the top here. Let's zoom in a little bit. So we're looking from the top straight down. I changed the perspective here, so we're looking from the top straight down, so you can see how it's generated. And then we can change it to the Z, to view it from the Z perspective, or the depth perspective, and we'll get a better view of it. So anyways, on the terrain tool, before you do anything, after you've created your raw file, you go to this gear icon, which is terrain settings, and you scroll to the bottom, and there's this import raw option. Now there's some settings here that we're going to need to actually readjust. Some of the numbers may not be right, but you can adjust this after. Basically, the terrain width and length is your width and height. Don't get that confused that when you're in a image editing program, it's calling it width and height up and down because it's a two-dimensional image. Don't get this terrain height mixed up with, you know, that term over there for the image height. It's actually different. The terrain height is, think of three-dimensional space. It's the sky. How high is your peak going to be, the top peak? So the terrain height is going up the y-axis that way. Your image is using, you know, the z is your the x is your width, and the z is actually your considered your height. That's going to match those. The terrain height is going to be your y value, which is your axis going up, your peak, and you set that to, by default it's 600, but that's really way too high. Mine is set at 200, and you saw, you know, some of the peaks I have, and I think 200 is sufficient, but you can play around with those numbers. Really just depends on what kind of, I guess, what kind of game you're developing and what kind of terrain you're going to have. You're going to have some super high mountain. You just kind of, I don't know, a little crazy, I think, going that high. But anyway, so you hit the import raw and go to your folder where you would have generated your raw file. So I have my HM Terrain raw. Click on that. Click open. Oh, coincidentally, one last thing I wanted to add: when you before you export your image in GIMP, you have to flip it vertically, because the way the Unity importer works, when it's reading this information, it's almost like, if you look at like the carbon or the mirror image, it's gonna be inverse of what you actually have. So if your image map looked like this to begin with, the way I have it, then you would flip it vertically and then export it, so that when it's imported into Unity, it'll look this way, because it flips it back. Essentially, it's, now they do have a, let me go back to Unity. There is a flip vertical option that they have now, which is something they probably have added in the version I'm in. On some of the videos I watched, I didn't see that option or anyone using that. It was all done, and they flipped it in the image editing program they're using, whether it be Photoshop or, in this case, I'm using GIMP. But anyways, okay, a couple of things we need to make note here. The depth is just, you can go with whatever it selects, 8 or 16. It's really not going to matter. 8-bit is what it's actually selecting, because a lot of it's auto defaulted based on what it reads. When we did the planar with the RRR, GGG, BBB values that it was embedding in this, each of those are 8-bit values, so I would just leave it at the defaults for that. But now your width and height have to match. This is going to match the actual size of the image that you created. So remember, we added 1 pixel each way. So, you know, 2048 was the actual original size that I want this height map to be, but I readjusted by 1 pixel to 2049. Just trust me, you need to do this extra 1 because it'll mess everything up. It must be something internal that you know, causes some kind of error, glitch, and it misinterprets terrain height data. So just add that 1 extra. Now these numbers here again have to match your actual image height and width when you exported it. So, and you should always make sure you make those images 1 pixel larger than your actual terrain width and height. Normally your terrain width and height are generally going to be even numbers, like 512, 1024, 2048. Those are some common sizes for height maps. Anyways, we're not going to do anything with the flip vertical. The byte order, we're going to leave it Windows because we're on a Windows platform. And now the terrain size, now this is going to be your X value is going to be your width, the actual width that you wanted your height map to be, or what it was originally before it was adjusted. So 2048 should just be 1 pixel less than these. And then the Z is going to be 2048 because we got an equal width and height. Now this Y value is your height map value, which is the terrain height value, which is in three-dimensional space how high it will start, go. So when it calculates it, it's based off that. So 200 is sufficient, and then we hit import and let it do its thing. You'll see in the bottom right corner sometimes there'll be some messages. Oops. Did I just mess that up? Yeah, actually, crap. I had the wrong terrain selected. That was my original one, so hopefully I didn't mess that up. Maybe I can, I don't know if I can revert that. I think I just lost, everything, all the work I did before by doing that. That just sucks. Damn it. Well, no, that one was, hold on. It was not visible, but I think I still had it selected, and I did the import on that. Maybe because I already had one in there, it didn't re-import over. I'm hoping it didn't. Let's go to the Z. Yeah, I just wiped everything out. Wonderful. So anyways, let's do this again. Let's click on this one. Import raw. 2049. 2048 for the X value, 200 for the Y, and then Z is going to be the same as the X value, 2048, if you had a height map that was the same dimensions width and height, but normally it is. Let's import. Okay. So let's see what we got here. If this is from a top-down view, let's zoom out a little bit. You see it brings it right in, and we've got there's some jagged edges there because of the way it does it. It's not exactly perfect, but it gives you a starting point. Now, if we go switch to the Z, let's see. You can see we have a three-dimensional projection of our height map and very rough and jagged edges, but you have a basic layout to start with, and that's when you start going in here. Like if we zoom into this area here where you have this really jagged stuff, then you can come in with your smooth the height. And actually you can bring the brush size up. It was on 31, but 100 makes it that big, but you can get some big areas fairly quickly. But if you go too much, it might be just a little extreme. Let's go drop that brush down. It takes more processing power too. So for my system, about 35 is really about all I want to do. Plus, that lets you kind of fine tune it. Just smooth that out. Like I said, if I wanted to make this a flat spot on a mountain here, then I can use this tool here, the paint height. So you click to paint the height. Basically, hold shift, it gives you a little help here. Hold shift and click to sample target height. So we want to hold shift and click. Let's say we want it right. I'm going to click at that point right there. Now I'm going to paint. I'm just going to smooth over this. And it'll add or subtract whatever it needs to do. a nice flat surface. So if you wanted to build a little village up in the mountains here and have a little plateau, or even build just an area that overlooks the valley or something, this is a great tool for that. Yeah, so that does that. Okay, so and again, you've got your raise and lower the terrain, so you can play around with those. I can just kind of click here, and it's raising it up. I hold down Shift, it lowers it. You see it's lowering it down. And then if you just need to smooth it out, that's when you get your smoothing tool. You can keep some, maybe make it where it's actually climbable at some point, or it looks like it would be climbable. So if you had a third-person FPS type game and you had a player you needed to run up a hill, sometimes you need to smooth these out. It depends on how your logic is written in your game, but it's going to be a whole lot easier if it's got somewhat of a smooth surface. Yeah, so what does that look like? Well, I think, oh no, okay, I thought it wiped that out. I guess, okay, it wouldn't import it because it was not even active. It was, okay, I didn't lose that. So anyways, let's call this, we can delete this one. I don't want that one in there. Let's go back to that one. Let's make it active. Okay. Let's zoom out. Yeah, it apparently did overwrite all my stuff because look at that, it's all jagged and all that. I had everything smoothed out. Now I think I can do, there is an undo selection. I'll have to keep doing a lot of undos, let's put it that way. See how far back, maybe it'll go far back enough. You see it added that second train back in there. So when that, I think that's it. I don't know if it went back that much. Shit. Yeah, I had. It looked like I had a backup though. I just started fooling around with it not too long ago, but I did a lot of work to it. Yeah, you definitely want to. So anyways, let's close this. I'm going to delete that second one. Put that train back on. Yeah, it's just really, this definitely is not, I'm trying to make sure. Yeah, that's, I had it smoothed out pretty good. So let's do this. Let's exit. No, we don't want to save. Yeah, so anyways, I'll just be playing around with this. I may not be talking a whole lot, but if you just want to see how it's working out, what I'm doing, let's discard those. All right, so let's do this. Maybe because I didn't save the scene, it'll bring me back to where I was. That's what I'm hoping. I still lost a little work, but that's all right. Not a whole lot. Just the project name is called Harvest. It's a temporary title. I don't really know what it's going to be. Like I said, this is just more learning how to use this tool, and I'll be playing around with the third person controller and working through some of that. And we'll just add things as we go. Try to build an environment that we can actually move around in. And then we'll look at building some interactions with that environment down the road. So I may return back to this. Let's see, what is it doing here? Nah, it looked like it, as far as that data goes, yeah, I foobarred the whole thing up, so it's all from scratch again. So I don't know where it saves that data, but apparently saves it somewhere. No biggie. So what I need to do is let's see, that was the player spawn I set up over here. I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'll close this for a second. I'm going to restore my backup real quick and just see if that makes a difference. Alright, so from here, let's put this drive in here. If this don't work, well, I'll just continue where I'm at. Alright, so Unity projects. Copy that. Go back to documents, Unity projects, and it's right there, so we should be able to paste. I also imported, like I said, from the asset store, there were some textures, some terrain, different things I could use just to play around with the terrain and get a better look. We can apply that texture here, and if I can recover this, I'll apply that texture to show how it could look. Alright, so close that. Let's relaunch Unity. Yeah, maybe it'll convert this, because I remember I had to re-import this. I was using a different version of Unity earlier, and just trying to upgrade it to this one. It shouldn't take that long because both versions are essentially the same. It's just the minor versions are different. The major version is the same. They're both 2017.4. Oh no, one is .2, one's .4. So this is a common thing you'll see, if you're downloading a project and somebody developed it in an older version of Unity. You got something newer, it's a massive project. It could take a while to go through all the assets, all the images, textures, materials, imported assets, just, scripts. It'll convert them to make sure everything is good and set up for the environment that you're running under. Now, I've been looking at a tool one of the tools that you buy the Unity Plus right now for $35 a month. You make a 1-year commitment. You get the tool free for a year. They must do it on a subscription basis as well, but it's a really neat tool that really in about 2 minutes you can have a complete environment built with terrain, grass, textured areas like stone, rock. It'll dynamically, it just builds, it automates it. It drops in, spawns in trees, it spawns in grass, and it uses some kind of stamp, what they call a stamper technology or feature, where you stamp in different areas where you want your spawns to be, and that's where it'll spawn like your high points and your low points. You just stamp, and then it runs it. So, but you can, through the automatic option, you just tell it how many stamps you want and some parameters, and it just builds the thing literally in minutes. Yeah, so it did recover most of what I did. So this here I had, this is before it's going to throw all that lighting in there, but I had a texture applied. It's easy to see with this dirt look like this. Anyways, let's hit play. Let me show you how Ethan runs through this. And I had him high up in the air, so that's why he kind of dropped out of the air. But the terrain automatically has a rigid body on it, and it interacts with the physics engine. So does Ethan, and that's why sometimes it's right now by default. If you stand, you can see. You look off to the right here, you see it looks like the terrain is moving, but actually, he's sliding down the hill because of gravity. So maybe I need to turn gravity off. That may be the simple fix for that. I didn't really even think to look at that earlier. We also don't, like I'm running straight right now, just with the up arrow. You see he's kind of turning away a little bit. Sometimes you don't actually run the direction you're going. He's automatically turning slightly to the right because of, again, I think it's gravity pulling him down the slope slightly enough to cause him to change direction like that. That was just crazy. I never turned on that. I was just pushing straight. We made a full 360. It could be that there's a slight glitch in the controller, the player controller for this. Again, it's just something they provide just to play around. So let's look at Ethan here, just out of curiosity. Let's double click on him to zoom in. That's what he looks like. He's got a capsule collider on him. We can look at some of the things. He's got the animator, rigid body, capsule collider. Yeah, use gravity is on. So let's. I think we need that though, because like he won't drop to the ground. Like if we hit a high point and we just start running forward, I think he'll just keep running. He'll run in the air. It look like he's walking in the air. Let's see what happens if we turn gravity off. What happens? No, he still drops. And the train is still moving though. But he's doing this funny little jump. You see that? I think it's because when I turn the use gravity off. Yeah, so it's not perfect, but it is something to experiment with your worlds. There are other third-party controllers out there, companies or people that have already built a third-party controller with some animated models, and it probably takes a lot of work to do that. It may not be something I want to really dive into right now. I'm just trying to build an environment that I could move around in, but this would be a great one just to learn about how the third-person controller works, along with the animations and things like that. So let's go ahead and turn that use gravity back on. So one thing I did want to do though is add like an empty game object. I'm gonna create what we call like a spawn. Player spawn is what I'm gonna call it. So let's double click that. Where is that? Okay, so that's right there. It showed up right where Ethan was, which is good. Let's do that so we can get a view this way. And then okay, so we're gonna move that down actually. Need to get it closer to the ground. Okay, so grab that and we are going to drop that to the ground there. It's hard to tell if I went to the ground or not. I'm pretty darn close, so let's see. Yeah, I think it's slightly in the ground. We'll see. Okay, so that's the player spawn there. And third person controller, I'm going to reset this. So if you double click Ethan, you see he's way out at the corner here. If we get a top down view, zoom out. Yeah, by default, he started, and I should have readjusted this. See, he's at the 0, 0 origin, really. And I didn't realize the terrain, when it places in there, 0, 0 is the bottom left corner if you're looking from a top-down view. So I should have centered it. With this being a 2048 by 2048, I should have readjusted the terrain to put him in the middle. But what I'm going to do instead is create a spawn location that's right in the middle, and I'm going to write a script just to spawn him in there. So that's the player spawn. It will be tied to this terrain, so make it a child object of the terrain. Let's zoom there, that's where that's going to be. I don't really see that. Must be falling through. There it is. I can't really tell from this angle. All right, so we'll leave it at that. Basically, we're going to just do the script real quick. So that's the third person controller prefab. That's a prefab. Actually, if we look and see, we don't have to create a prefab because it's already done for us. When I imported that from the asset store. In the prefabs folder, I'm in the standard assets folder. Under characters. It's this thing called a third person. Oh, there's some information about it. Just seen that. Okay, that's how to add your own. Just reading that. That was how to add your own model and player controller, all that. Yeah, I'll definitely have to research that. They also have, I'm reading here, they have a third person AI control component. So if you want to do NPC style navigation, you have to use something called a NavMesh agent to pathfind the way to the target. So that's pretty cool. Let's write the script real quick. All right, so we're going to delete. Delete the third person. And we are going to add a script to the island here. Let's see where we at. So I think these scripts, where was that? We're going to move this actually, not here. This needs to go up here. I'm trying to rename this thing. One click, two click. Okay. So be spawn player. Let's also create a folder to organize this in. Folder called scripts. Let's drop that in here. Okay, it looks like it named our public class because I didn't save it before it did that. So let's delete this script and start over. Spawn player. All right, see, it's important to name it right away before you even preview because it compiles it right away and creates a stub. So you see it says spawn player in here now for the public class name. That's what we want. All right, so let's launch our Visual Studio. Yeah, it really helps to have a really fast high-end system. Fast hard drive, plenty of RAM, good graphics card, so that it can deal with all this. All right, so we're going to we need a reference actually to a third-party prefab, third-party controller prefab. So public let's see how we're going to do this. We need a reference to that component. Let's save that for a second. Must be missing something here because it's not even showing up as a type. Let's see. All right, so let's go to the prefabs folder. third person. Let's drop her in. All right. We're going to have our own prefab folder. Create new folder. All right. And let's rename this player controller. We need to add a camera. All right, so let's see. There's our Ethan. Got a camera attached. Should name that as player follow camera, or just player camera. It's the one that's going to be following the player. We know that. All right, and so now let's see if we can drag that and create our own prefab. Okay, so now let's go to our script. Gonna have to do a little Google in here. A little googly. Yeah, so let me slide this over here. Sorry. My browser popped up on my other window. Alright, so how to get a reference to a third person controller prefab in Unity C# script. Let's check this out first. Character controller. Switch to scripting. Public transform prefab. Okay. Void start instantiate prefab. Okay, so we got to use the transform, which basically we're going to get the transform of the component of the prefab, but I guess that's all we need. Instantiate it. Okay, so maybe that gives us our reference. I thought we had to get an actual public transform player. Player equals get. Let's go back. What was that? Oh, we're just going to instantiate the prefab at the location. Okay, it says new vector 3, blah, 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 da, 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 da. So where we're going to get this stuff from is the player spawn, which is a game object. Transform dot. Yeah, we're just doing float XYZ. So X. Transform dot Y. Yeah, what this is, see, this script is going to be actually attached to the spawn, the player spawn game object, which is basically just an empty game object with a transform component. And so when the script is attached to a game object, when you just access the built-in variable called transform, it's a reference to the transform component of the parent object of this script, which is going to be our spawn game object, spawn player game object. So that's why we can just type transform dot x, y, and z here. Now this quaternion identity, I haven't really read up a whole lot on it, but I did read that when you use the dot identity flag on this quaternion built-in data type, it makes sure that when it's instantiating this object, it does not rotate the object. So the object's going to rotate in it's going to be in the same spot, you know, where the player game object is, and the object will not rotate. It'll be facing whatever direction it's facing right now. Now, why isn't this working? What do we got wrong here? See, there's no definition for that. So let's go ahead and add our script. Scripts. Where's our spawn player script? Give it a chance to compile there. It's going to need an instance to our player controller. Let's see. I'm missing something in here that we need to put in here. Some kind of namespace. It's not working either. Always something I forget. So I need to get more into this. Let's see. I did this before on this other project we worked on. Might have to look at a few C# scripts from that project. Like spawn a bomb. Let's just take a quick peek at that. Open with Notepad. Bomb prefab. Okay. Okay, so the what I'm seeing here at this code, we had the spawn location needs to be declared as a public transform. This is backwards. This is be spawn location, and then a game object that'll be the player prefab. Will be dropped in. All right, and so this is going to change to I don't know what that is because still complaining. It seems like it's complaining about it. Transform does not contain definition for X and no extension method X except the first segment type. Transform could be found. that probably. Let's just use the position. That's what we did actually. Like that. That's what we needed. I don't know what I was thinking. Alright, so let's go here. Wait till that script updates. We'll get our exposed variables here. Then we can drop in what we need to. Our spawn location, which will be our player spawn. Now we're going to do save our own player controller. It's going to have a camera built in. We need to adjust the angle on that camera. Let's click on that camera actually. Let's raise up the Y in that to 1.5. Let's drop the Z back to 1. Get it where it's viewing our Ethan guy pretty good. Let's see. Y1, let's do that. And then let's get an angle. Let's do a rotation. Be on the x-axis. Yeah, let's do 10. Nope. Let's do about a 15. Let's raise it up to 1.25. To see if we do that. We want to back up. Yeah, negative 1.1, 0.25. The angle might want to go 20. Then the Y might want to go 1.50. Let's go about there at that angle. So we're looking down behind them like that. Alright, so in our prefabs folder we have apply that. Let's see if it updated. Oh, it didn't. Alright, so we should be able to delete this guy right here. Let's run it, see what happens. Let's see. Let's make sure we do have our script. Oh, there's no player prefab there. It's just the one that's gonna have the camera. Player spawn. All right. So now let's run that. Let's see what happens. All right, at least we get it. So we're able to spawn him in. That was the important thing. Now he's falling into the abyss, but what that means is the spawn location Y value needs to be up a little bit higher. Let's try 55. See how that 750. I had that extra 3 at the end, which made it 7,503. Is way off the terrain here. Still not high enough. I don't have them in a flat spot. Is what it is. All right. So what position is that really? So I need to find out where he's actually at. I don't know if it'll show. Anyway, no biggie. Let's just run him around. Yeah, this player control is kind of wacky. One of the things I can't do, like, you can't use your mouse. I'm clicking and moving the mouse. You can't use it for navigation. It completely uses the arrow keys. I don't like that. I think as you move the mouse. Excuse me. As you move the mouse, it should be moving. So I'll have to tweak that. I'll probably have to go into the player controller script. See how they have all that written out. So anyways, that's going to be our... I'm thinking I covered everything I was going to show you, and I was just trying to play around and get it back to where it was. But, so let me stop this. I'm going to continue to iron out my map here. So let's add another camera just so we'd have a camera. And let's change what it's pointing to. Alright, so if the camera, and it's probably at, let's go to Y and take a peek. Yeah, it's at 0, 0. So let's move this camera so it's sort of in the middle here. I actually want a top-down view. We'll move the, whoops, 2, 3. All right, so that's the camera preview. We're looking at the other axis though. All right. Let's see. All right, so let's see what we need to hammer out here. Let's get this area here. It's kind of rough there. Let's smooth that out a little bit. Okay, what I'm thinking about doing is doing like a plateau flat area like right here. This whole area that would, let's do this. Paint the height and then zoom in here. Yeah, we'll just do something like, so we gotta hold down shift, then we're gonna click about there. So we're gonna make this nice little flat plateau area right here. gonna make this like a little path that goes through this area here, almost like a road. Well, I guess it'd be sort of like a valley if you're gonna think of it that way. Alright, so I'm going to use the smooth tool now to just kind of smooth out some of this where I did all this. Just go quickly along the edge here. Smooth that out a little bit. Alright, so where's our player spawn again? See if we can find that area that we smoothed out. Oh, he's totally on the opposite side. So I'm using that terrain paint height feature. Again, I'm blending in, building another platform here. So let's do this. I'm going to zoom in. Rotate around. Oops. Yeah, so I want to figure out a way. I want to blend that in so a player could climb up that. That should do the trick. Come up right over here. Yep. Just hope that isn't too low. Yeah, it needs some major cleaning up over here. Alright, so we're getting close here. It looks, I guess, okay for now. Let's see. Let's add some water here. We could add. I think it was environmental. We're gonna have to import a package, I believe. I got standard assets. Let's see. Save that. It's gonna take just another minute. Shouldn't take too much longer. This might be a good start for a open world sandbox kind of game. Maybe just use it as a test bed to implement, like a crafting system or just interacting with various objects and keep adding stuff just to learn how to do something new. For example, how to bring in some tools like an axe and maybe spawn some trees and allow him to chop, our player to chop trees down and collect items. So we got to have an inventory system, and yeah, it could be a work in progress. It could take a while. Alright, so I think it's done. Okay, environment. There we go. Water. Water basic. What's the difference between water and water basic? That's water basic daytime. Water basic nighttime. We went daytime water for now. So I'm assuming we just throw it in as a... Alright, well that didn't work as planned. Alright, so we got our camera back in view. Or this one here at least. Alright, well I'm not really sure how that water works. Let's run this and see if it's something that's generated dynamically. Alright, so we need to figure out how to use that water. Setting up water. Place one of the existing water prefabs in your scene. Make sure you have the standard assets installed, which I do. Simple daylight, simple water, and nighttime simple water, and standardized it's water. Fancy water is daylight water and nighttime water and pro standard. Okay. Water mode, simple, reflective, refractive, set in the spectra. Use the prefab use an oval shaped mesh for the water. If you need to use a different mesh, change it in the mesh filter of the water game object. All right, so let's go back here to Unity. Click on our water. Let's raise the position up just in case that's an issue. No. Okay, mesh render. Let's see, materials. Water basic daytime. Size. Wait, size is 1. Let's see if we make that 100. What happens? Let's go 1,000. Doesn't matter. Right now, why is it running super slow? I guess I. Two audio listeners in the scene. Where the hell is there another audio listener? Okay, maybe the scale is what we need to do. No, I think that's what we need to change. Let's reset. Wait, water basic. Actually, our thing was 2048. Let's try that number. Okay, we are starting to see something there. Oh, I saw something. Wait a minute. There we go. It wasn't being rendered. Alrighty, so we can move that. Okay, so now let's go about here. Looks like a clock actually with the size. So change that to 1024. 1,000 by 1,000. That's just a little bit. See if we can change water basic plain mesh. Trying to get something that will cover pretty much the entire island. So we'd increase that just a little bit. Let's just do 1500. Oops. That definitely will cover it. Looks just a little bit too high there. So we're zooming in just so we can see. Actually, that was the Y. We didn't want to mess with the Y, I don't think. Alright, so let's hit Z. I think I want the water to be a little bit higher than that. So what we're going to do, what did that do actually? See, it's a pretty good distance. It doesn't look like it until you start running it. Okay, this is Water Pro. Let's see if we what's the position in that. Let's add a new game object. Create empty. Call this water spawn. There we go. So now we could drop a different kind of water in if we want, see what it looks like, and just turn these on and off. So let's do a pro. Alright, so this is Water Pro. It's got more of a reflective, cool surface. Let's do this. I need to get, let's see, terrain, player spawn. Okay, I need to move the player spawn more in the Z direction, I think, up here. I want to get it right on this platform. Maybe right about here. That's going to put us there. Alright, let's see. Where is this player spawn position X? The Y was too much. Alright, let's stop that. Yeah, that water looks much better. I don't know if you can see that. Let's see if we can maximize this. It's the pro version of the water. Definitely got a more realistic look. Alright, so let's save our scene. We're going to end this stream right here. Since we got our player control in there, we ironed out some of the rough spots of our terrain. And we added some water. Next thing we want to do is add some trees and some other things that we can do with the terrain. Looks like we can do paint trees. Click to paint trees, hold shift and click to erase trees. Hold control and click to erase only trees of the selected type. And then there's paint details, whatever that is. So we're gonna have to figure out how to work that. Change that view. Yeah, much better. Let's zoom in here. Yeah, nice little reflection there. All right. So y'all have a good night. I was just tweaking a few little things. We'll keep on this every day and see what we can build out of this. Hope y'all have a good night.